This is 5 on 20 News with Joel Foster and...
I am the great and powerful News Nebula, here to provide commentary to every story that Joel's going to read to you. All-knowing, all-powerful. Let's talk local headlines because it's Friday, Casual Friday. Here at Creative Tucson, 5 on 20 News. Take it away, Joel.
All right, here we go. This morning, Representative Martha McSally met with Small Business Association Administrator and Trump Cabinet member Linda McMahon for a one-on-one chat about the proposed Republican tax reform bill released this week. The meeting took place at 1800 Industrial Loop and was criticized for its level of secrecy as it was closed to the public. Media were given a mere 15 minutes to ask questions after the closed event occurred. A source that got into the meeting says that most of the small business owners were actually government subcontractors who worked for Raytheon and other large corporations. She claims that the atmosphere was friendly and that one wine vineyard owner offered a bottle of wine to McMahon to deliver to the president. Aww. At one point in the meeting, they bragged that the Trump administration had eliminated about 900 business regulations since taking charge. Outside of the event, a group of protesters gathered to criticize McSally for refusing to meet with her constituents. 3 veterans spoke out against the tax plan and said that it would hurt the middle class and benefit corporations and the wealthy. Meanwhile, the reporters really just wanted to know if McSally was running for Senate.
Really?
But at least one of the event's guests tried to challenge her. Here's some footage from the Q&A and the protest going on outside. Let's take a look.
Very diverse companies represented here, but very similar themes on how they're really doing everything they can to stay afloat, to get ahead, to create more jobs, to grow our economy under a massive burden of taxes and regulation.
I'm traveling out of the country to get ideas from our small businesses as to what is really impacting them, how I can best advocate for the almost 30 million small businesses around the country. They are the backbone of our economy, and we want to make sure that they are able to thrive and to grow. And how can we help them do that? We are looking at tax reform, we're looking at regulatory reform, healthcare reform, and also working to make sure that we can help create the right kind of workforce that is necessary to fill the jobs, almost 6 million of them that are available in our country today. So it's great to be able to get the feedback. I like coming into the communities. I like sitting with business owners. I want to hear from them specifically because then we get the best messages to take back.
Congresswoman, you've talked about, there have been mention of these various reforms.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot to do in 1 year. How will you make these changes when you're in the Senate?
So,
Congresswoman, do your constituents deserve to know what your political plans are? There is so much out there about your interest in the Senate, and this is being unrebutted to this point. There are folks out there who obviously have strong feelings. At what point do you feel you need to make your
Ron,
plans
this is
clear?
an official event. In my official capacity, by ethics rules, we're not allowed to discuss that.
Can you comment about
yeah.
I was going to piggyback on what Bill Thomason had to say about healthcare costs rising. Will you introduce a companion bill to the Alexander Murray bill, since it's almost exactly the same as the bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus letter that you already signed?
Yeah, actually, it's not exactly the same.
Actually,
it's not. It has a couple of elements in it, but it was really a small percentage of what our proposal was. And some key things that were missing from the framework that we proposed was specifically impacting the employer mandate, the medical device tax, and some other elements there. So those are pretty big things that are missing, and those were the ones that we went to the mat to negotiate for. So we're still working through what we can do, and we heard from individuals here today, and I'm happy if you all want to jump in about the impacts of healthcare. Again, we're allowing the jury, the committees of jurisdiction, to work through their processes as well. And just know we've been advocating for a bipartisan way forward that specifically is focused on stabilizing the individual insurance market and impacting small businesses. And we think there's a lot of things that we very much disagree with on Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, and we need to move towards a better model. But it's the individual health insurance market that is collapsing under its own weight, and it's impacting small businesses like those that are represented around the community. So we had some great ideas in there that are not in the Alexander Murray bill, and so we need to look broader, I think, to provide relief to small businesses like those that are represented here.
Will you
So
provide
the
your own
NFIB
companion
has
bill?
come out against the tax plan. How do you square their opposition and your support?
Well, actually, at first they said there wasn't enough in it for small businesses, and now I think through continuing negotiations and conversations they're having, I believe yesterday, they were able to put forth a different bracket, I think a 9% bracket they inserted. So hopefully with that continuing collaboration, they have now said they are more inclined to support, and they clearly are in support of that particular bracket coming forward. I think the NFIB supports small businesses, around the country. We clearly are happy to hear, what their input is.
They're moving forward, but they're not there yet?
My understanding is they are there, that there were some changes made in the final amendment that the Ways and Means Committee worked through, and specifically the new 9% for startup businesses, for those that are making less than $75,000. And, their early years, again, many people around this table know this, how challenging that can be. And then also trying to make sure the right balance of what the tax is on capital versus labor. So those adjustments were made to the House version of the bill. My understanding is they're now supportive of it.
Do you agree with the Senate version to delay the corporate tax cut?
I do not. I believe we need to have that immediate relief for the corporate tax in order to light our economy on fire. And we are going through our sausage making process, and we will work out our differences with the Senate under the constraints that we have. But I think it is important for us to have that immediately in 2018.
Linda, your opinion on that?
I agree. The quicker we can get that in place, and businesses can realize that reduction in their taxes, there'll be more investment in businesses, and our economy will grow at a faster rate.
If that is killed, if that is the decision in the Senate to delay it, is that a killer?
Yeah, again, this is, I think, a very, very high priority for the House. And when we get our bill out of the House today, we'll be in a position of strength when we negotiate with the Senate and work through our differences.
What would you tell people out there
Someone-
protesting outside? What would you tell them? People who are protesting outside?
Look, this is America, and they certainly have the right to do that. I wore the uniform for 26 years in order to protect their right and put my life on the line for it. I represent a very diverse district. Thank you, Mike. As we come up on Veterans Day, I represent a very diverse district, and people have very diverse views, and I do the best that I can every single day to represent those views and to fight to get results for Southern Arizona. And my record shows that, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw it. It probably wasn't much reported on, but came out as the 9th most effective member of Congress in my freshman year.
So I'm here because I don't like the idea of tax cuts for the rich, but I think it's more accurate to say that I don't like the idea of being lied to. For 30 years, we've been lied to by Republicans who say that tax cuts for the rich are going to grow the economy. Tax cuts for the rich are going to create jobs. But that's not true. And I want you to understand why it's not true. Because when you understand why it's a lie, you can really understand how dangerous and pernicious this tax cut plan really is.
And as a veteran, I feel like McSally has kind of turned her back on us. This is what this tax plan will do to veterans like me. 400,000 veterans will lose access to needed nutritional assistance each year under this plan. That's terrible. And she's a veteran herself, so she has turned her back on veterans.
Shame on her.
Shame on her, Martha. And we all know the middle class drives the economy. When veterans get out of the service, sometimes we need training assistance to get us back into civilian forces. So the programs like the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act serves about 1 million veterans a year and puts them back in civilian sector jobs, figures out what they want to do, skilled trades, go to school. But under this tax plan, 342,000 veterans would lose access to programs in that act. So they're going to get out of the service and just be left on their own.
How many?
342,000 veterans.
I have never publicized my military background, but I find that McSally insults me on every level. As a woman, as a veteran, at every level, as a minority. So I came out last year and I had an existential crisis, and I said, if I don't do something now, I will never forgive myself. So I have been working nonstop since then, trying to make my voice heard, trying to make people understand that we're in a real crisis here. I am really scared. I have never been this scared in my entire life.
I'm frustrated that Martha McSally doesn't seem to have much outreach with her constituents, and I don't feel like my perspective is being heard, which is, I think, a healthy skepticism of this tax plan, which is going to benefit the wealthy overwhelmingly, which adds to our national debt, and which is part of an overall push for the sort of the rights of billionaires in the Trump administration.
I'll tell you, the News Nebula's legs hurt. So now let's talk about some of the truth from that news segment, because the News Nebula knows all, and we can see this and hear what's going on. The truth, obviously, McSally is in league tag team partners with Linda McMahon, and they're making a heel turn. That's right. Former WWE CEO is partnered with McSally, and obviously a heel turn is on the horizon because our president is a WWE Hall of Famer. So, master of the buzzword, that's obviously her signature maneuver. Master of what else did she pull this week? Talking out of both sides of her mouth. A trademark of McSally. Saying this, meaning that, following up with the other thing and the opposite of that one too. Making sure he covers all her bases. That's right. We ain't talking baseball. We're talking professional wrestling. And that's right. This entire thing, it's a work. That's what I think. What do you think about that? That's what the News Nebula believes about McSally, believes about today, and believes about McMahon.
Well, I, of course, agree with the News Nebula because I cannot disagree with the News Nebula because the News Nebula knows all.
Knows it all. All right. What else happened?
Okay, here we go. Demonstrators gathered on Conga Street this afternoon to protest Operation Streamline, a joint venture between the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security. The policy, instituted in 2005, calls for a zero-tolerance approach to border crossings by engaging in criminal prosecution for those engaging in the practice. Up to 70 people are often tried at the same time, often wearing shackles in the courtroom. Under the policy, entering the country without inspection is considered a misdemeanor, while re-entering the country illegally is a felony. Hundreds took to the streets in what ended up being a largely peaceful demonstration. Police were on hand, but didn't need to pull out the pepper spray, at least this time around. Let's take a look.
Well, look, hang on a second. The all-seeing eye of the News Nebula knows all, and what he sees is this. Peaceful protesting, always good. It's good to leave the house, it's good to get involved. I'm glad that nothing terrible happened, and always go out and get involved. That's what you gotta do, especially here in Tucson. Tucson. Make sure you take care of business around here, because this town, we love it. You're making it better by making your voice heard, so keep doing it. Keep it peaceful, but keep protecting one another. That's the thing to do.
Well said. Yeah, you really know all, don't you? All right, no video, let's move on. All right, we got another one though. A man today was arrested by Border Patrol at a Tucson Motel 6. According to a source, Border Patrol knocked on his hotel room door while he was sleeping and took him away. Reportedly, the hotel called the Tucson police after being alerted by the Border Patrol about the man's citizenship and claimed that he had warrants out for his arrest. It's unclear what role Tucson police played in the matter and whether they coordinated with the Border Patrol to facilitate the arrest. Here's footage of a group featuring 5 on 20's Zyra Olivier encountering Tucson police and asking them if they are in coordination with the Border Patrol.
Doesn't call Border Patrol.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Who told you this?
Chief Magnus several times.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call him. I'll double check. Okay.
Yeah, that's why
You know what we're talking about. I'm not about that specifically. So you do call Border Patrol. Of course we do. In this situation, yeah.
The Border Patrol is
What other
here.
kinds of situations? Well, I don't know specifically what you're asking for. What situations? I mean, there are certain situations that I can call.
So when you do a stop, you do call Border Patrol?
No.
So what happened today?
And you as attorney?
No, we're here to witness what's
well,
happening.
Like I said, I cannot violate his privacy rights to answer any questions. He did not give me
everybody here work
authorization.
together. That's
Okay,
the
I
thing.
understand.
For different.
I understand. You got the case number right over
Yeah,
there?
I have
Okay,
it.
if you guys have any issue with what we did, I just want to make it very clear that we're not here for any immigration-related reasons, okay? We got a call, we made contact with him, we confirmed the warrant that he had, and he's going solely for the criminal warrant that's in the system.
All right, so we had a call for a Border Patrol stop, and when we got here, the Border Patrol was just driving away with a community member here in Tucson, and when we got here, the police was still here. Now, we have been told by City Council, the Tucson Mayor, and Chief Magnus about 1,000 times that Tucson Police Department does not collaborate with Border Patrol. Now, what we saw here is that the Tucson Police Department, apparently what the cop just said is that he came to serve a warrant to this community member, and they called Border Patrol, and now he is going to be in the Pima County Jail and, possibly deported.
That's right, Motel 6, they'll leave the light on for you. Tucson Police, they'll leave the red and blue lights on for you.
Well said. All right, both Reed Park Zoo props passed announced today, according to updated election results. Prop 202, which would create a 1/10 cent Tucson sales tax to fund zoo improvements, passed on Tuesday, but Prop 203, which would update the city's code to allow the sales tax raise, was too close to call. But Prop 203 ended up passing narrowly by less than 600 votes, setting up the path towards the sales tax raise. About 10,000 votes were verified and added to the totals on Thursday, putting the referendum over the mark. And it came just in time for the Red Panda opening this weekend, beginning on Saturday, November 11th, when Reed Park will introduce their group of the furry, adorable creatures who will be in Tucson until next spring. I'm pretty excited.
I love pandas.
Me too. While the zoo appears to be doing well, Tucson education, not so much. Prop 206, which would have set up free, high-quality preschool education, failed at the ballots, along with a referendum to issue bonds to fund improvements for the Tucson Unified School District. This makes Tucson the first city where their wild animals have a better education than their students.
Let me weigh in on this. You see, the News Nebula knows why. Waves and waves of ugly, ugly children are taking over our streets as we continue to produce, well as our reproduce, whereas the zoos, cuter and cuter every single day. Have you seen a baby red panda? Actually, the baby panda is disgusting. But when they grow up, adorable. Like Benjamin Button, honestly. They just get better and better and better. That's the way it works.
So the lesson...
Cuter and cuter and cuter.
Right.
The older and older they get, that's right.
So the lesson here is humans need to be cuter.
Yes, work on it, folks. I'll tell you. More vitamins, maybe perhaps workout.
Good work. All right, former Arizona Representative Gabby Giffords is suing the Trump administration over withheld communications between government officials and the NRA. The Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence filed a suit against the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency for failing to turn over the documents. The group reportedly filed multiple Freedom of Information requests for documents related to multiple matters. These include policies on concealed carry, reciprocity, on gun silencers, bump stocks, and assault weapon exports. Reciprocity means being able to transport a potentially illegal weapon into other states. Yeah. They're also seeking evidence that Donald Trump Jr. lobbied on behalf of gun manufacturing companies and communications between gun lobbying groups and senior administration officials after October's mass shooting in Las Vegas. The group said that the documents could show the NRA's influence over the president's gun policies. That would never happen, right? However, they said that all requests so far have been ignored. The Trump administration apologized, saying they've been busy talking to NRA lobbyists.
I believe that them and the lobbyists often have sleepovers and enjoy braiding each other's hair. They're very close. So when it comes to gun control and all that sort of stuff, remember, they don't want to take away all of your guns. They just want to help regulate it. You know, like chocolate and other things that we buy like all the time. You can't just have it whenever. Maybe wait a day until you calm down.
Sure. All right, now on to national and international news. This is a fun one. Overseas wars have cost the U.S. $4.3 trillion since 2001, according to a report from Brown University's Watson Institute. The report says that this number is likely to jump to $5.6 trillion by the end of 2018. That's trillion with a T. It found that $1.9 trillion came from the emergency war fund known as the Overseas Contingency Operations, or OCO program, with an additional $534 billion coming from interest costs. Additionally, $879 billion came from the Defense Department's base spending, $783 billion from the Homeland Security's prevention and terrorism response, and $277 billion from Veterans Affairs spending. That's a lot of billions. One of the study's authors, Netta Crawford, noted that the combat operations since 2001 have largely been paid by borrowing, one of the major reasons why the U.S. went from a budget surplus to a deficit after 2001. Future interest costs alone are on pace to add more than $1 trillion to the national debt by 2023 and $8 trillion by 2056 if the U.S. doesn't change the way it pays for wars. Democrat Jack Reed of Rhode Island, a ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, said that, quote, "We have to recognize that we have been borrowing for 16 years to pay for military operations." He criticized the Republican push for tax reform because there's been no talk of raising taxes in order to pay for these wars. U.S. officials announced this week that they will probably increase the total number of U.S. forces in Afghanistan to 16,000, up from its current 15,000 in the country. Under the Obama administration, these numbers were capped at 8,400. But Donald Trump decided to send about 3,800 troops to the country this fall to strengthen efforts to advise Afghan forces and conduct counterterrorism missions. The Pentagon had insisted in August that there were only 11,000 troops in the country, but was found to have misled the numbers with accounting measures. Since taking over, Trump has changed military policy, giving Defense Secretary James Mattis the authority to adjust troop levels based on military requirements, whatever that might be. Both Trump and Mattis have repeatedly insisted that they don't want to talk publicly about troop numbers in Afghanistan because they don't want to give information to the enemy. The enemy responded, saying that the constant barrage of bombings kind of gives things away.
It's a little bit of a hint, it's true. It's nice to know that the deficit is as vast as the amount of stars within me. Billions and trillions, folks. Keep those pennies. Search those couch cushions. You're gonna need it.
All right, here's going back to my hometown here. New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, I know, was found to have quietly owned an offshore company in order to avoid or reduce U.S. taxes, according to leaks from the so-called Paradise Papers. The documents were released last week from Bahamas-based Appleby, which is a law firm, and shows how the world's elite wealthy use offshore tax havens to mask their wealth. Kraft is identified in a June 2012 file as the owner of a holding company and had bank accounts on the tax haven of Bermuda. He's one of several owners of U.S. sports teams found in the documents, in addition to bosses of franchises in the NFL, NBA, and NHL who use Bermuda, the Bahamas, and Barbados to escape taxation. Sounds nice. Also named were Miami Heat owner Mickey Arison and Boston Celtics owner Steve Bagliuccia, and Carolina Hurricanes owner Peter Carmanos. Excuse me.
That's an unfortunate team name these days, isn't it?
A spokesman said the Bermuda company had been established to do business with certain customers, which the spokesman refused to identify. He insisted that the offshore vehicle dealt in relatively small sums, so 100 million or so. Kraft's Bermuda firm was incorporated as a branch of International Forest Products, a wood and paper exporting division in his privately held Kraft Group. The Bermuda vehicle is an investment holding company, meaning it collects returns on investments or property rather than actually dealing in goods and services. Under Bermuda law, Kraft paid a fee in return for paying no tax on profits, income, or dividends. It's not allowed to do business in Bermuda itself. Kraft is listed in the document as the owner of all 12,000 shares of the Bermuda company. Just what the world needed, another reason to hate the Patriots.
You don't need many, and you know that they really care about the money when they're using Appleby for their lawyers. Half price after 10 on all litigation services. Appleby, neighborhood lawyer something joke? Go on.
Former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called on Americans to pass universal health coverage yesterday at a speech in New York City. Ban spoke at an event called Health for All Walk Together, organized by Elders, a group of global leaders working for human rights. The group was founded by Nelson Mandela and chaired by former UN head Kofi Annan. This marks the first intervention of world leaders into the healthcare debate. Ban called on the U.S. to stop, quote, powerful interests from prioritizing profit over care. Moon is part of a global delegation pushing the U.S. to adopt a publicly financed health system similar to those found in other wealthy countries, such as those in Europe, Canada, and pretty much everywhere else. Of the 25 richest countries in the world, the United States is the only one without universal health coverage. The U.S. spends more in healthcare than anywhere else in the world, yet 28 million Americans still lack care. In the speech, Bond said that in the U.S., all too often, only rich people get access to expensive life-saving treatments. He called the system unjust and said that it threatens everybody's health when working and middle-class people with communicable diseases cannot afford treatment. He mentioned the example of the recent mass shooting in Texas and claimed that many of these victims were left without affordable care. Despite world leaders urging the prospect of a universal system is farther away than ever, with Congress dominated by Republicans who have so far been focused instead on repealing the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Senator Bernie Sanders introduced a universal health care bill in the U.S. this year, but it's failed to gain traction so far. President Donald Trump has called Sanders' plan for universal care a, quote, curse. The president has called a committee to design a series of potions to ward off the curse, which he says is going to be, quote, very, very good. People say it's the best anti-curse potion they've ever seen.
It's true. They've got a plan for the future, and I've seen it, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it now. Invest in lifesavers. That's going to be all you can eat. And laughter seems to be the best medicine going forward. That's the administration's plan.
And it's free.
That's right. Yeah. Keep it here, tuned in to 5 on 20 News for all the laughter you can basically digest.
All right, ex-Trump aide Michael Flynn is being investigated over a plot to kidnap a Turkish dissident living in the U.S. Flynn was reportedly involved in the plot to abduct cleric Fethullah Gulen, who fled to Pennsylvania after being accused of plotting the coup against President Erdogan of Turkey. The plot involved kidnapping Gulen and then flying him to an island prison in Turkey in return for $15 million, which would have been given to Flynn, according to the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, this doesn't even sound real. The report states that Robert Mueller, the special investigator investigating Russian interference in the 2016 election, has enough evidence to charge Flynn. Mueller has already indicted Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, and another senior fundraiser on charges including money laundering. Flynn has expressed interest in an immunity deal for more information leading to higher chains of command. Ooh. So Mueller may use the kidnapping plot to get to the bottom of the Russian interference case, which could spell further trouble for Trump. We'll see. Flynn's company, Flynn Intel Group, was already under scrutiny for failing to register work it did for interests linked to President Erdogan, which led to Flynn's eventual resignation from Trump's cabinet. In September, the Wall Street Journal first reported on the kidnapping plan, which also involved CIA Director James Woolsey. Friday's report describes a second meeting involving both Michael Flynn and his son at the 21 Club restaurant in mid-December. Flynn claims that he was simply craving some of those famous 21 Club jalapeno poppers.
Delicious. It's true. I see these names in the news often. I hear them come up a lot. It's never good news, is it? People should change their ways. It's true. If you want to change your ways, I'd like to take a moment. Hang on. Let the News Nebula put his reading glasses on and take care of business, because you see, here at 5 on 20 News, oh, there I can see, we want to take a moment to talk about what you're watching right now. We are undertaking a new kind of citizenship journalism. We're going to give you the news as we see it, and we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves, so join us. Do it. Do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event that we should cover, or have any news tips for us, shoot an email to info@creativetucson.org. We're here for you. We want to cover all the stories from all the points of view. So don't be strangers. That's right.
Thank you. All right. This was 5 on 20 News with Joel Foster and, of course,
the great and powerful News Nebula.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to all of our social media accounts for all the latest Creative Tucson news and content. Feel free to bother us at info@creativetucson.org.
And may I punch in?
Sure.
I want to talk about something going on this weekend and why myself am looking so grand and decided to visit here, Creative Tucson. You see, this weekend there's a lot of fun stuff going on here in Tucson. Last weekend, Tucson Comic-Con. This weekend, TucsCon. That's right, the 44th Annual Science Convention, all that stuff. It's a great time. So, if you'd like to come down there, go check out TucsCon. It's over at, I think, the Marriott on Grant. You can come see me. We're hosting game shows. We're doing fun stuff, interviewing writers and doing all that. Joel's going to come down. We're going to do a big scoop of a story for you. We'll have have it here next week as we embark on a brand new thing, a new travel-y event channel that we're gonna, or show that we're gonna make, doing lots of fun stuff where we go to all the events all around Tucson and give you a tour and give you some behind the scenes what's going on. If you've got an event that you want us to come cover and do it in style, let us know and email that same email, Creative Tucson, what was it, at creativetucson.org?
.org.
Info at creativetucson.org.
Info
I
at
believe.
creative.
That's right, info. Thank you, sir. And that was 5 on 20 News. Thanks for watching. Stay creative, Tucson.
I just want the bag.